Hey, we are happy to announce that there is a Leading Saints Spanish podcast. That's right, it's called Santos in Liderazgo. And Ernesto and Nancy are the ones that are co-hosting that, and we're so excited to have them on that task. And in this episode, I talk with Ernesto and his journey with Leading Saints, and then starting to host the Spanish podcast, Santos in Liderazgo. And it is so encouraging to see the potential that this podcast has for Latin America. There's obviously, as most Latter-day Saints know, we have a huge Spanish-speaking population in the church. Is even bigger than the English-speaking, probably. But we're so excited for this more content for Latin America to be put out there, and so we need guests, we need feedback, we need you to subscribe and do all the things. And help share this, help get this out there to help as many leaders as possible, especially those who don't speak English and can't, process or engage with this English-speaking content, that maybe they can jump into the Spanish Leading Saints. So here's my interview with Ernesto Quintanilla. I guess I'll just start out, lead with the good stuff here, is we are announcing a Leading Saints podcast in Spanish. And it's actually been going on for quite a few months now, if you're not aware of it. We haven't necessarily been trying to hide it. We just want to maybe have it highlighted as much as we had. And our fearless host is Ernesto, and with your wife, Nancy, from time to time. Is that right?
That is correct, yeah. She also is part of the project.
Yeah.
She is the best part.
She's the best part. So we'll have, and I think you've done some with just one host, and then others you've done together, right?
Correct, yeah. We have had some time, the opportunity to be together, interviewing some friends, and then some others individually.
That's cool.
Yeah.
So just maybe give us your background with Leading Saints and how you came across it, and then how this opportunity came to be.
Oh, yeah, of course. So this all started probably about 3 years ago when I was called as a bishop in the Spanish word here in Caldwell, Idaho. And a friend of mine, she told me about a podcast, specifically about how to handle meetings, because that was one of the first things that I was most concerned about. Prior, I was called as a bishop. I was part of the bishopric as a ward clerk, and I will feel the pain of the meetings. So I said, well, how can I do this better? And then,
like you were trying to facilitate and lead the meetings, is that right?
Kinda. No, well, yeah, I was trying to do a better job when I was called as a bishop.
Okay.
In the meetings. Prior, the meetings were, and I think we haven't been able to become 100% better, right? But they were quite a little. We didn't have a specific structure, so I wanted to do something different, and that's how I learned about Leading Saints. And then when I looked at the website and started to diving in through all the material available, I mean, I think probably the first 6 months of being called as a bishop, I would spend as much time as I would spend in the general handbook diving into the material of Leading Saints, trying to come up with ideas, just different ways to do things. And it was very interesting for me because all of that material is not available in Spanish, right? So we started to practice things that I never heard before. Back in El Salvador, I'm from El Salvador in Central America. So those were things that I never saw, never crossed my mind. I never heard of things like that. And it was quite interesting. So during that process of learning and listening and just absorbing as much material and knowledge as I could, eventually I came across to a post that was published in the how it's called at that time. Now it's the science lab, but how it
Yeah,
was
the
called before,
core leader
the,
library.
the,
Yeah.
the core leader library. Yes.
Uh-huh.
There was a post about an opportunity to do a Spanish version of the podcast, and I remember that the post encouraged people to record themselves trying to make an interview, and I came running that day from work, and I showed the post to my wife, and I said, "Hey, let's record an interview. Right now. I'm gonna interview you, and then you interview me, and we'll send both. And either you or me, we're gonna get it, but we're gonna get it."
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember when we sent that,
Yeah, I
but
was intrigued,
yeah,
to have a husband and wife both kind of submit their recording, and then it sort of made sense. Well, what if they both did it? And to have
uh-huh.
and you at least, ideally, I know how one can get burned out with some of these things. So to maybe have a co-host or somebody who can step in and take turns, and then also have a female perspective, in the mix as well, as it's definitely
Yeah,
wouldn't hurt. So
yeah, no, and I remember we submitted the interviews. You guys were really quick to get a hold of us. I remember we jumped into a call. We talked about the vision, and then we started. I think we started on March last year,
mhm.
when we started
And
just
just started
doing all the
recording,
all
right?
recording and getting to connect with people and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's how Santos and Liderazgo
That's right.
started.
And that's what it's called. Santos in Liderazgo. Hopefully my old
Yes.
missionary Spanish will come back. But there's a good reason why I'm not. I guess you could, if someone said, "Do you speak Spanish?" I'd probably say yes, I speak Spanish. But it's definitely rusty. It's been several years since I've really spoken it, on the mission level. And it was important to me as we were putting this project together. We knew we wanted to do, and this is hopefully the first of many different versions of the podcast in different languages. I'd love to get a Portuguese one someday, a French speaking one, right? A Tagalog speaking podcast, because there's so many dynamics in leadership that happen in different cultures, and that it'll be worth talking about. And part of this was I didn't, there's a ton of gringos who speak great Spanish, who served a mission and do those things, but it was really important that we got a native speaker like yourself, even though you live in the United States. You're natively, that Spanish is your first language, right? So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
great to have you there, standing by, ready to jump into this. So what is, like, what has it been so far as, as far as interviewing leaders, and just generally what surprised you about that experience?
Well, there are a couple of things that I think I was aware of it, but not to the level that I am aware now, and that is that there is a huge hunger within the community to learn about leadership and to know how to practically apply the principles, because we know of them from the teachings of the prophets and the leaders, um, but there's this perspective of, okay, well, and here's an interesting dynamic that I wasn't fully aware. There are a lot of new converts within the Latino community that are being called to serve as in leadership positions, and they are not fully um, immersed on what is the culture of the church, what is the culture of, and how leadership is being promoted and practiced within the church, right? Um, and then there's this um, aspect where you have the Hispanic community members of the church that live in the United States, and then you have everybody else, right?
Yeah,
All
yeah,
the Hispanic community outside the United States. And even though we tried, the church is true and it's the same all over the world, but it's quite different the way things are being perceived outside the United States versus how things are perceived inside for those words that are here. So it has been very interesting to see what are those differences and see where there are connections and where there are things that can relate, and then we can share, and then we can become a whole and better leaders across the board.
Yeah.
um yeah, and then listening to their stories. There are, I'm sure this has been something that you have experienced personally throughout all your experience interviewing people, is just learning about how miracles happen between people, how people are able to learn and apply things that they never expected that they could do. um like I was talking with a friend from Peru a couple of weeks ago who started the how they call it, the missionary hospitals or something like that. Can't remember the exact words, but it started in Peru with just bringing doctors for missionaries to help youth prepare to serve a mission, and it was very successful in their stake. And then it become an area plan, and then um, it went through other areas, and now it's a program that the church uses throughout all Central America to help prepare missionaries, giving them all the medical and dental services in their preparation for their mission. So just things like that that just changed your mind, and by seeing how people are able to exercise their faith and make miracles happen.
Yeah, that is the fun part of doing these types of interviews is you meet people who, from their perspective, they seem like everyday, ordinary people. They can't even begin to imagine what they would share in the context of an episode. And then they get talking and you realize they're doing really something quite dynamic, or what is normal to them, or just a regular opportunity that came up is actually quite unique. And then they start talking about it and principles come up, and it's awesome to hear just the leadership from ordinary members that are really dynamic, So,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's powerful.
Yeah. So is there, and you'll be covering some of this, as you already have, but there's going to be episodes maybe focused on the experience of leading a Spanish speaking ward in the United States, or English speaking country, or you're talking to leaders in Latin America where it's everybody speaks Spanish here. Of course, we have a Spanish ward, right? And there's cultural dynamics there that are different.
Yeah, I've I've had also the opportunity to speak with leaders who have had the opportunity to serve in Central America, and then as a bishop, and then later on they were able to come to the United States, and now they are serving as a bishop in the United States,
Hmm.
and just learn how different things operate. Um, First of all, also it is quite significant to learn how they grew from that experience as a bishop, and then a few years later, after being a bishop, then coming and applying what they learned here also help them grow. But it's interesting. Like, um, I'm not gonna say that the church in Central America is not organized, because it is, but there is a structure very well defined in how things are being done here, and I think it has to do also the fact that for instance, most of the units in Spanish here in the United States are part of stakes, which the leadership are members that have lived here in the United States, right? They're American people. So the Spanish units kind of join and merge the culture and the way that things are being done through that stake, right? As it should be. But when you see the Hispanic culture interact with how the structure operates in those states, and then you compare it to how the whole stake in Spanish operates, you start to see that there are things like, for instance, you will get to a word in Spanish, and there is a lot of party, a lot of
Mhm.
music, a lot of food, a lot of chit chatting, and now that happened in a word, right? Like if you go a word here in the United States, but if you go to a stake in Guatemala, that's a thing that happened every time, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so the way that the members um, structure their church services and experience is different. I hope what I'm saying is making sense,
Yeah.
but it's quite interesting to learn from those perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. I think in the United States, in the U.S. culture as well, you're going to, may not, sometimes Latin culture could be quite diverse, from one country to the next, even from the
Mhm.
words they use. And I think we have that experience to, from state to state to a degree. But yeah, you're learning about all sorts of unique cultural dynamics that impact the leadership experience from country to country, right?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, it is powerful. Um, for instance, I was talking with a guy from Peru who is a stake leader for the young single adults in Peru. And he was sharing with me all the different initiatives that they are implementing in their stake to increase participation with the youth, and everything is managed at a stake level. And then each ward having a representative, but everything is managed through a stake level. And then I was talking with another friend who is part of the first 25 to 35 young single adult ward in the world. It's in Spanish. So it's the first word created between 25 and 35 in Spanish. And everything they do is all in the word level. Everything they interact with the people just in the word, and you I can see the similarities, but you see over here, like we have you have to have, and you have people from Chile, Mexico, Guatemala, Ecuador, Bolivia, Argentina, and you have all that people in that word, and it becomes very rich in terms of everybody sharing their different food, how they dance, how they celebrate independence and things like that, right? And then on the other side, you have the Peru people who they celebrate only their culture. Um, so those are kind of different dynamics that you see and you experience while talking with them. Um, yeah, yeah, those are kind of the things that can come to mind right now.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense. Um, so what do you think about like church leadership, either from your own experience or just, growing up in El Salvador, or from the interviews that you've been recording? What are some of those principles or examples of those leadership dynamics that may be more unique to the Latin America ward stake experience?
Mhm. Um, One thing that has come as a pattern, um, very very obvious, is the fact that leaders tend to build very close and deep relationships with those they serve. You might be aware that part of the culture surrounding Latinos is that warm, that that they give you a hug every time, and
Yeah.
hola hermano, ¿cómo estás? Yeah, and there's that, I call it that spark of um, warmth
Mm-hmm.
that as a Latinos we have. So that creates um, very deep and rich relationships between the leaders and those they are serving. Um, they become friends very quickly, and they like to go and go deep and go very very close to those they are trying to connect and serve. Um, Also, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of the leaders are new members, are recent converts. They have a few years of being baptized, um, or they are first generations, or they are individuals who they are the only member in their entire family, so they're pioneers. Um, and it's quite significant to see how they go and act in faith without necessarily knowing um, what to do or what to say. Um, they don't they don't go to a house and all of a sudden a quote from President Hinckley come to their mind, right? They will go and just say something that they heard in the radio that morning, um, and it has the same impact because it comes from the Spirit, right? So just to see how, even though there isn't that uh, um, foundation in terms of knowledge in the principles of the gospel, they just go and do and act and make things happen. And then there is another aspect that has been quite interesting to me, is this mindset of being open to learn. Um, Many leaders that I have had the opportunity to speak with, they always share how they either have had experiences in which they had to quickly unlearn everything that they knew or they thought they knew, and then uh, try to seek understanding from their leaders, and be coachable, be teachable, and just change whatever they think they are doing. Um, Also, there's I wouldn't say this is a unique from the Latino leaders. I think it's across the board, but just the intentionality to be uh, aligned with the handbook, and how they try to look for um, understanding the principles in the handbook and trying to be aligned with them, apply them, understand them, teach them between the other members of the ward council, and things like that. So those are kind of the big highlights that I have identified. Uh, Obviously, I mean, principles like organization, uh, planning, and things like that have also come up, but they aren't kind of the very first things that come. These
Yeah.
are like the ones. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Makes sense. As far as like, as you've sought out guests and things, people always ask me all the time, like, Kurt, how do you go about finding the people that you interview? And a lot of it comes down to, well, I just find anybody who's really willing, and we start talking about it, right? And especially early on, when I had to be more proactive in finding guests for the podcast, it was more of like, almost begging some people, like, just give me, let's just see how it goes. Like, let's chat. Let's like, I need to interview somebody, and good things are coming from that. So is there, what has that been like as far as finding guests or considering what guests to have on and who to interview?
Well, it has been a little bit as your experience.
Uh-huh.
We have had to go and like we started with people that I knew here locally,
Yeah.
um, just friends that we met over the years living here in Idaho. Um, we have had quite a few who had declined the invitation to come, and even we have had some that we have couple that we invited, we recorded, and then they said, you know what, I don't want. I look too ugly or whatever. So
Yeah.
we have had those experiences as well. Um, and then it has been referrals, just um, from that friend that we interview. We asked, hey, do you have someone that will be willing to participate? And then they connect us, and then we create the technology has been our friend, honestly, because we have speak with people in Utah, people in California, people in Peru, in El Salvador, um, in Argentina. So yeah, right now we are just trying to get a hold of as many people open to share their story and have a good time talking about their experiences. Um, yeah, we're right now we're in the look for more individuals who would like to participate and join.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely an invitation, a call out for the Leading Saints audience, that we just really want to find some great leaders, the great examples of leadership, and feature them, as guests on here. So never hesitate to send those in to us. And Ernesto is in Zion Lab. You can send him a DM there, and or you can send me a DM as well, and we'll make sure that they get in the list of consideration. So
Yeah.
um, here's a question by Melinda. She says, I think that for my small congregation, the biggest challenge is for the Americans to understand the Mexican culture. That's what our Latino population is, and how to reach out in an authentic way, even more so than the language barrier. Do you have any advice on how to learn more about the culture, or how our efforts can be perceived as authentic, considering their cultural lens? I think this is a great question, and one I have. Obviously, you have experience. Are you in a English speaking state? Is that how it works there? And then you're the Spanish ward.
Correct.
Okay. Yeah,
Uh-huh. I'm in
and
an English stake.
and I served my mission
Uh-huh.
in Sacramento, so stateside Spanish speaking, and I often saw kind of that sometimes it's a passive aggressive dynamic of that relationship between the Spanish ward and the English ward, and the cultural differences, where for Americans it can be like, wow, like you talk about, just this warmness, this excited uh, can point of connection, of friendship, and sometimes in the foyer after their meetings it can get really loud because they're excited to see one another. They just have that energy, right? Of course, I don't want to generalize any culture, but that was very common, right? And for maybe a conservative English speaking culture, it's sort of like, hey, we're more focused on reverence here and being quiet, and so that can clash. Or the ways that Latinos party, and they party big, and often with decorations and a lot of dancing, or things going on, where we
Uh-huh.
we have our potlucks, and we do it differently. And so sometimes these two cultures clash within the same building. What thoughts come to mind as far as navigating that and understanding each other better?
That is a phenomenal question, and if I'm quite frank, that has been a conversation that we have had with our stake president as well. Because I think it has to be both ways. Um, it has to be a openness from the Spanish words to uh, be part of the culture of the stake. That's a mindset that needs to change within the units. We come from I will say that probably 75 to 80% of those attending to Spanish units are people that are coming from outside the United States, right? So they come, or we come with already ideas with which we have grown up with. So there has to be a change and an openness to don't necessarily change what you're doing, but understand what the culture here in the United States has to bring in and provide to us. And then there's this other aspect of um, you have to, in a way, immerse yourself in what's happening in the units. Um, Personally, I learned that the best way to learn English was to move from a state where you could speak Spanish very easily to a state where you didn't have much Spanish available. I used to live in New York, and in New York, I didn't have the need to speak English because everything was available in Spanish. So I lived there 3 years, and if you ask me how my language, how I improve in my English in those 3 years, I will say that was this much.
Yeah.
But when but when I moved to Idaho, and I didn't have anyone to speak to speak Spanish, in 3 months I knew about this
Yeah.
English. So immerse yourself. Just go and join. Go sit there. I promise, and I'm sure most of you have experienced it already. But if you go to a party or a gathering of a Spanish word, you get in and you sit. Just do that. Just get in. Don't talk with anybody and sit. Within seconds, you will have one or two individuals there trying to know who you are and what are you doing there. Especially if you bring a tray with food. Oh my gosh, that will be just a quick magnet. Um, yeah, and just be there. You don't necessarily have to um, kind of understand everything that is happening, but they are very willing to help you be part of what they're doing. Uh, Especially if you show signs of real interest in what's happening, uh, in what they're saying. Um, don't be afraid um, to look weird or awkward. In fact, they will love it if you go and just be yourself, be natural. They will embrace you, and the more time you spend with them doing what they do, um, the easier it will become for you to connect. Um, because they're something that happens here, and I don't know if it has to do with the weather, um, but kind of the environment in the United States is very cold, if you call it that way. Like the interactions are very cold, right? We are very warm, and we enjoy that. I don't know. We enjoy hugs, right?
Hmm.
So um, we try hard to be cold, but in reality, we're starving for warmness and just open up that to other people. I don't
Yeah.
know if that is any helpful, but
Yeah, I
it's
love
just
just
an
the
experience.
approach of just immersing yourself in it. I mean, that's for me definitely as a missionary. I didn't have any choice but to immerse myself in it, and I'm so glad I had that opportunity because even to this day, I appreciate so much of that culture and the food and the everything that comes along with it. So
Yeah, be prepared to gain weight.
yeah,
Just have that in mind. Okay, yeah, that's gonna be a thing. So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, really good. Awesome. Any other, just from the interviews, maybe tease us with some of the interviews that you have done and any that have stood out for you personally?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, So we have spoke with quite a few individuals who have served as a bishops, both in their country and here. Brother Asoka is one. We spoke with Hermano Deras. We have also, oh, there you go. Cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
pull it up here.
Hermano Mejia, he is currently serving as a counselor in the stake presidency in a stake in New York. That is a quite interesting dynamic that is happening in New York. In fact, um, the way they organize the state council and the high council is they have half of the high council are um, American, and then the other half is Hispanic.
Hmm.
And it's quite interesting how they have been able to overcome the language barrier and have stake council meetings even with people that don't speak the language well. That's quite interesting. Then my wife had the opportunity to meet with Wendy Bonilla. She's currently serving as a Relief Society president in El Salvador, and she shared beautiful insights about how to connect with with the individual, how to make them feel that they are part of the work, and that how you can help them go to the next level in terms of their conversion and their commitment to covenants. We are currently we had I had the opportunity to meet with a sister in California who is she works in the mental health space,
Hmm.
and we talked about um, how um, how to help members with mental health um, issues, and then how to help those who have come from their countries and they are struggling here with mental things. Because uh, yeah, it's quite interesting the dynamic that comes along with mental health and feeling that you don't belong here, but you don't belong back in your country again
Hmm.
because you don't have anything over there. Your family is now here, but you can't quite connect here. And when you go back there, you can't connect over there because everything is here. So
Yeah.
that is an interesting dynamic.
Yeah.
Um, we also had the opportunity this brother that I was mentioning at the beginning, he served as he was serving as a stake president at the time when they created this program to help missionaries prepare for their mission with all the medical and dental work. Later on, he also served as a counselor in a mission presidency, and he shared marvelous experiences of miracles that happened uh, while he was serving. He was one of those stories of people that they didn't know what they were doing, they didn't have previous experience in leadership, and just wonderful miracles happen. Um, yeah, and there are some others that we're working right now in editing and posting. I invite you to go to the YouTube channel and just skim through the ones that have been posted there.
Well, the first
We're
thing they need to
starting.
do is go there and subscribe, and then they can skim through the
Yes,
different
sir.
episodes.
Oh yeah, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell.
That's right.
You can tell I'm still working on my skills of promoting properly.
You're doing great. You're doing great. So I wish people could go back in
um,
time, and it may seem like I'm comfortable behind a mic, or I know just the right thing to say here and there. But yeah, early on, I was like, I was a mess. So
yeah, I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it right now. Thankfully, I have you there on my side.
that's right. I'm always
No,
standby.
giving me a pat at the back.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, yeah,
And of
definitely.
course we have,
Uh-huh.
yeah, and we also have science lab. We have a channel there. It's called Santos and Liderazgo, and yeah, you're more than welcome to join and post and share ideas. We are right now extremely open to ideas or things that you would like to see and learn and just content that it will be very helpful for your interactions right now with the people that you're serving. And we're happy to also participate there and join and share.
That's awesome. Really good. Well, yeah, we encourage people to just check it out, jump in, start learning. Please recommend guests. Please, if you are a Spanish speaking leader, raise your hand and step forward to participate. We're trying to just follow the same model as the Leading Saints has been for years, and but create more resources for the Latino population and address those unique dynamics they may face. So this is really cool. So, and Ernesto, I'm so grateful you and Nancy are willing to step forward and help out. And I have to get Nancy on here. I was hoping that maybe she would join you, but there's probably a lot to manage in a household like yours, right?
Yeah, yeah, we have three boys. One
Wow.
is with a little bit of a cold right now, and she had to do um, activities with primary today,
Oh,
so
cool.
she
Awesome.
run.
Awesome. Well, any other point, principle, encouragement, or before we wrap up, or?
Um, you know what? I just want to share. Our goal or vision is to create a community of leaders that they can build each other and each other help build Zion. I want to um, just communicate that even though we're Santos and Liderazgo, we are leading saint as well, and we're trying to fulfill the same mission and the same vision that leading saints is. And I want to just communicate that there is a huge need, that there is a huge hunger for knowledge, for understanding, and people is really open and really ready to listen and to join and participate. So just the invitation of come participate, join, share your ideas, your friends, and just come and be part of the community as well. I think together we're gonna become better influence for the members of the church across the globe, and especially with Santos and Liderazgo in the Latino community that is growing, and a lot of people need our help or support and our example of things that we're doing. So just that.
Awesome. And have you uh, found some as far as consistency and as far as questions you ask during the beginning or the end of an episode? Is there a certain question you always try and end on, or?
Yeah, of course. I always ask how being a leader has helped you become a better follower of Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
what a great
Always end.
question. I wonder where you got
Yeah,
that from.
powerful. Yeah.
So
Uh,
then I got to
my,
ask you then, how would you answer that question as you reflect on your time as a leader? How has being a leader helped you become a better follower of Jesus Christ?
um, there is a kind of relationship that you develop with Him when you are out and about doing His work, and that has been the biggest gain for me. Is how my relationship with Him has deepened and strengthened over the time that we have tried to uh, come forth and do His work. I truly believe that leading Saint Santos and Liderazgo is part of His work, and we're trying to add value to His work and be tools in His hands. And I have felt the blessing and the power of the Holy Ghost coming and helping us see and helping us do. and helping us connect with different people and bring their message to other people who need to listen to it. I have had the experience, and I'm sure you have as well, where you share something through a conversation with a guest that helped someone in the other side of the country, and they come with gratefulness for you connecting that knowledge to them, and that has been a great and a powerful, humble experience that I'm enjoying and I'm happy to be part of.